Hey guys, this is AnimeBallZ here, and today we're going to be doing the second part of What If Naruto Was an Ape Sage. There's no like goal on this, I'm just going to go through the what if and see how far I go. There's nothing much else I want to say in the intro, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
Slick talker since a jit. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag. Disrespectful and I'm rude, okay. I had cocaine in the school.
After all of the matches, the Genjutsu is pulled across the Chunin exams arena. Naruto manages to repel the Genjutsu this time, and he looks around at the people within the Genjutsu. He turns and sees Gaara, Kankuro and Temari run away into the distance. Sasuke looks and runs after him. Naruto follows Sasuke too. He says, "What's going on?" Sasuke says, "I'm finishing my match." Sasuke swings off of a branch and swivels before landing on another branch and leaping off it. Eventually the two catch up and then Shino arrives too. Sasuke runs at Gaara and uses his Chidori on his arm. Gaara tanks the attack and punches him away. Luckily Naruto is right there behind him and he throws 3 kunai. However, the 3 kunai have paper bombs attached to them and Gaara flies forward from the impact of the explosion. Naruto leaps forward and whips a wire around Gaara. The paper bombs roll down the wire, then he lands and grabs Sasuke. He leaps up to a tree and bounces off to a higher branch before the bombs violently detonate. Naruto says, "Sasuke, get up!" He weaves several hand signs and 100 shadow clones appear. He dives down and attacks Gaara. Gaara swipes him away and he slams into a tree. A ton of bark falls off and then Gaara is forced to fight 100 shadow clones of Naruto. Naruto stands and sees Sasuke's curse mark activate. Sasuke dives down to Gaara and uses his Chidori. His arm chops off and Sasuke collapses. The shadow clones look in confusion but then defend his body from Gaara. Naruto runs in and grabs Sasuke and Sakura and Pakun arrive. Naruto turns and contacts Kurama again. He says, "I need more than before, now!" Kurama does what he wants and his pupils slit. His eyes turn blood red and he gains a blazing fiery aura. Gaara looks at him and rushes at him. Naruto runs and swivels right over him. He kicks Gaara in the back then side kicks him forward. Gaara turns and swings his arm. Naruto turns and punches the sand arm. It deforms and weakens the attack. Gaara laughs menacingly and a second sand arm grows. He thinks, "Oh god." He backflips and dodges 2 swings of the arms and lands. As he lands, he gets pummeled by a punch. He rolls away, then Naruto throws a kunai with a paper bomb at him. It explodes and Gaara's arm loses a chunk of sand. Naruto weaves hand signs and 5 shadow clones appear. He says, "Coordination guys, don't let him hit you." Naruto runs in and kicks him. He ducks under a hook, then another shadow clone punches Gaara across the face. Naruto's clone flips over him and kicks Gaara across the face. Naruto and 2 shadow clones all land a punch on him and a shadow clone stabs a kunai into his back. Gaara knocks the shadow clone out of existence and swings all of the other shadow clones away. Naruto stumbles back but then 150 shadow clones surround Gaara. Naruto takes a step back and they all run right at Gaara. Gaara gets overwhelmed by the constant attacking and actually starts to get punched airborne. One shadow clone takes out wire and wraps it around Gaara. They pull the wire tight, then Naruto runs in and jumps up. He shows his skill with Ape Sage fighting and kicks Gaara right to the floor. Gaara spits blood and slams into the floor. He sees his own blood and screams. He swings away all of the shadow clones and looks at Naruto. His face cloaks in sand and he transforms into his half Shukaku form. Naruto looks in shock and thinks this will be even harder now. He runs in and punches Gaara. Gaara tanks the hit and uppercuts Naruto up. He then leaps and swings Naruto into a tree. Naruto flips over a branch and into some grass. He stands and blocks a punch from Gaara. He slides back a little bit and throws several punches. Gaara tanks each one, then grabs the neck of his shirt. Gaara kicks him up and punches him so hard that he flies and grass is ripped from the ground because of the gush of wind released. Naruto stands shakily and his Kyuubi chakra disappears. He stands and closes his eyes. He thinks, rage and focus. He feels the energy around him and seals it within him. His eyes open and he shows his blood red eyes. His hair darkens to dark brown and a tail grows from behind him. He looks up and makes his Ape Sage mode stance. Gaara runs at him and Naruto slides under the attack. Naruto punches his sand arm then turns and kicks his back. Gaara falls forward but turns and tries to attack Naruto. Naruto is easily able to dodge the attack and catches one of Gaara's fists. He presses as hard as he can and destroys the fist. A ball of yellow energy develops in his hand and he launches an energy blast. The blast waves off a mass of sand from Gaara and also sends him flying back. Sakura and Pakun turn from the bomb sound and Gaara's blood mixes in with the sand to form a mud brown type colour. Naruto walks forward and says, "You are weak, Gaara." Gaara stands and roars in rage. Sand uncontrollably spurts from his body and forms an absolutely massive arm. Gaara then falls into the sand and the body grows and grows. Naruto looks up in shock and thinks, "I think it's time to run." However, in the distance, in the Black Mountains, the Uzaru have heard. One Uzaru, which stands at a similar size to that of Shukaku, walks forward in Son Wukong's large hall. He says, "I will help, Son Wukong." He says, "Oh, just call me Goku." He runs through the gates and leaps with unimaginable speed and height. He runs off and up the mountainsides at high speed. Naruto shouts, "Run!" Shukaku slams his foot into the floor and Naruto runs off. 3 shadow clones of Naruto appear and pick up all 3 of his friends. They all run off and Shukaku is unable to see them, so he just slams the floor. The shockwave of this attack is enough to send one shadow clone off of his feet. The shadow clone poofs away and another shadow clone grabs Pakun. Eventually they begin to hear really loud banging noises. Naruto says, "What is that?" Pakun says, "Why would I know?" The Uzaru opens his mouth and a beam of energy releases to Shukaku. The attack actually manages to cause some considerable damage. It causes a hole in Shukaku, then the Uzaru punches Shukaku. His head knocks back, then he launches a blast from his hand. Shukaku takes a step back, then the Uzaru slams him to the floor. He punches his head and Gaara is revealed. He rips the small guy from Shukaku and throws him away. Gaara slams through a tree and passes out. The Uzaru goes in for a punch, but then the sand disintegrates in his hands. He stands and says, "What? Whatever." He walks back, realizes that the target has been neutralized and leaps into the distance. Naruto thinks, "Was that an Uzaru?" He then hears Gaara come crashing down through trees and he lands a few meters from him. Naruto goes up to him and wakes him up. Gaara looks in fear and runs off. He says, "Don't hurt me." Naruto's Sage Mode disappears and his tail shrinks and fades. He says, "I won't hurt you as long as you don't hurt me." He says, "Come on, Gaara. I know where you come from. Your loneliness. You're just like me. I found people close to me that I came to cherish and love. You should find those people, Gaara." Gaara's eyes widen and he stands. He nods. While this is happening, the 3rd Hokage still dies. I know the Uzaru helped this event, but not the event of the 3rd Hokage, but they aren't actually that strong. After all of this, the 3rd Hokage's funeral still happens and Naruto's training continues. He says, "What am I gonna do now?" Jiraiya says, "You did good with learning Ape Sage Mode. After this, I'll let you try and perfect it." Naruto says, "What's this?" He says, "The Rasengan, an S-rank jutsu. Now look." He opens his hand and a Rasengan pops up in his hand. Naruto says, "Whoa, how am I supposed to learn that?" Jiraiya throws a water balloon at him and says, "You have to pop that balloon." He squeezes the balloon and it pops. He says, "Like this?" Jiraiya says, "You act more like Yama every day." "No, not like that, Naruto." Naruto says, "Then like what?" Jiraiya says, "With your chakra." He pulls out his very own water balloon and the bubble waves and swings around until it pops. Naruto says, "How did you do that?" Jiraiya says, "Multiple directional waves of chakra at once." Naruto closes his eyes and the ball starts to spin in one direction. He opens his eyes and says, "Why isn't it pop?" Jiraiya says, "You span the chakra in one direction. You need to spin the chakra in multiple directions at once." Naruto grabs the balloon tighter and 2 spinning chakra waves form. He begins to spin a 3rd wave of chakra and it succeeds. You see, Ape Sage Mode training gave him not just better control over his emotions but better control of his chakra. He fails and Jiraiya says, "You were close, Naruto. You need more spinning chakra directions though." Naruto exhales slowly and begins it again. He causes the balloon to wave around and roll around in his hand until it pops. Jiraiya says, "So soon? How?" Naruto says, "I guess that Ape Sage Mode came in handy." Jiraiya says, "Unbelievable. Don't get too happy though, that's merely the first step. Now try and pop this rubber ball." He throws it to Naruto and he says, "This is going to be way harder." He does what he did last time and the ball just moves around and doesn't pop. After constant trying for a short while, he manages to pop this rubber ball, but it's merely a small hole in the ball. Jiraiya says, "Not enough. You need to completely pop it like you popped the water balloon." Naruto says, "That's possible?" Jiraiya laughs and says, "Of course that's possible." Naruto begins his training again. In the morning, when he is tired and focused, he manages to control several waves of chakra. He opens his eyes in surprise and the waves fade. He quickly begins again and maintains several waves of chakra. Eventually, the ball rolls and moves around until it's popped. He says, "I did it. Jiraiya says, what? Naruto says, I popped the ball. Jiraiya says, oh, good. What you did? He says, yeah. As Jiraiya is out of the hotel, Naruto is still in there. He is practicing taijutsu with the Shadow Clone, then he hears a knock. The Shadow Clone waves at him and he poofs away. Naruto walks up to the door and Itachi is stood right there. He thinks, who is this? Itachi says, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Naruto says, who are you? Itachi says, it doesn't matter who I am. He grabs Naruto's shirt and throws him out of the hotel door. Kasame reveals his sword and tries to swing at his leg, but then he notices a large amount of chakra absorption. He says, this kid really is the Jinchuriki. Itachi says, yeah, get his leg off already. Naruto backflips away and weaves several hand signs. 10 Shadow Clones appear and immediately poof away. He thinks, what? Sasuke comes and says, Itachi, I'll kill you! Itachi dodges the attack flawlessly and slams his neck into the wall. He says, you don't have enough hate, Sasuke. Sasuke shouts, yes I do! He tries to punch Itachi and Itachi doesn't even move from the hit. Sasuke looks up and Itachi launches him across the hall next to Jiraiya. Jiraiya says, move! Naruto runs to Jiraiya and Jiraiya does his whole thing with the toad throat. So that will conclude the second part of What If Naruto Was an Ape Sage. I still want to thank you guys for the amount of support I got for my last What If. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.